Some have suggested that when we reach chapter 12 of Romans, which is a lovely chapter, we come to the practical application of the gospel. Here is Christian behaviour writ large. It would be more accurate to state that Christian ethics is the work of God in the believer. Divine truths have been expounded first, mighty doctrine, eternal facts. Now, because that's the way it is, how should a Christian behave on this earth? Paul rolls out very practical teaching on Christian conduct and duty. The aim of the whole gospel is holy living. The apostle appeals to the saints in Rome to offer their bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to God. Don't offer God dead animal sacrifices as a ritual, but present yourselves to God once and for all, ready for obedient service as a spiritual act of worship. Verse 2 says, "Do not conform any longer to the pattern of this world." J.B. Phillips famously puts it this way, "Don't let the world around squeeze you into its mould." We're not to play the worldling, but to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. This is a process, growing in grace, as we grow transfigured. Then we'll be well able to make out what the will of God is, namely what is good and acceptable to him and perfect. That's Moffat's translation of verse 2. The Jerusalem Bible puts verse 3 this way, "In the light of the grace I have received, I want to urge each one among you not to exaggerate his real importance. God has given a measure of faith to you and a different measure of faith to your brother." Paul likens Christians to members of the human body. There are many members and each has a different function, but all are needed for the health of the body. There is a beautiful diversity in the body of Christ. We have different gifts, charismata, freely given in grace by God to his people. 7 gifts are mentioned here. They begin with prophesying, serving, teaching, and encouraging. Serving is high on the list. It means practical service. In teaching, the believer is shown what he must do. In encouraging, he is helped to do it. The Living Bible continues in verse 8, "If God has given you money, be generous in helping others with it. If God has given you administrative ability and put you in charge of the work of others, take the responsibility seriously. Those who offer comfort to the sorrowing should do so with Christian cheer." Verse 9 says, "Love must be sincere." The Message says, "Don't fake it. Run for dear life from evil. Hold on for dear life to good." We are to be devoted to one another in brotherly love and to honour one another above ourselves. The Jerusalem Bible expresses verse 10 this way, "Have a profound respect for each other. Outdo each other in mutual esteem." Listen to a range of ways in which verse 11 comes to us. Maintain the spiritual glow. That's Moffat. Keep your spirit at boiling point. That's Barclay. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervour. Serving the Lord. That's the NIV. Here's verses 11 to 13 in the Message. Don't burn out. Keep yourselves fueled and aflame. Be alert, servants of the Master, cheerfully expectant. Don't quit in hard times. Pray all the harder. Help needy Christians. Be inventive in hospitality. Are you patient in affliction? We're called to meet tribulation with triumphant fortitude. Suffering colours all life, doesn't it? A gallant sufferer once responded, "Yes, it does, but I propose to choose the colours." Are you faithful in prayer? Torrey, who was very well acquainted with the great evangelist D.L. Moody, said this of his close friend, "I wish to testify that he was a far greater prayer than he was preacher." Do you practice hospitality? 1 Peter 4 verse 9 says, "Offer hospitality to one another without grumbling." That's a far cry from, "Oh no, they're not still here, are they?" Tyndale expresses it rather quaintly. The Christian should have a harbourous disposition. Verse 14 reads, "Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse." It was only 8 years after penning these lines that the first great persecution broke over the Christian church in blood and fire and vapour of smoke. Many a persecutor has become a follower of the faith he once sought to destroy because he has seen how a Christian can forgive. The classic example is Paul himself. Here's the way to live Christianly. Rejoice with those who rejoice, and weep with those who weep. Have equal regard for one another. Do not be haughty, but go about with humble folk. Do not keep thinking how wise you are. Do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everybody. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Do you remember Jesus pronounced a blessing on peacemakers? Are you an accessible, approachable Christian, ready always to learn, a team player, not someone who tries to act big? There's another echo from the Sermon on the Mount in verse 19, where Paul urges the saints in Rome not to retaliate or seek vengeance. "Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, 'It is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord.'" That's Deuteronomy 32, verse 35. On the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. In doing this, you will heap burning coals on his head. That's Proverbs 25, verse 21 to 23. In this way, he may well feel a burning sense of shame for what he has done to you. Kindness to one's enemy is encouraged. Even in the Old Testament, at Elisha's request, we find a trapped Aramean army being given a great feast and then sent home. That's 2 Kings 6, verses 21 to 23. Kindness may win your enemy over. The last verse is translated by Moffat, "Never let evil get the better of you. Get the better of evil by doing good." This chapter contains Paul's classic teaching on individual responsibility.